Horrifying moments. How Ukraine destroys 3 Russian tank battalions in 1 week in Avdiivka. Ukrainian forces have destroyed 3 Russian tank battalions in the war-torn country, according to the Ukrainian military, as mounting Russian vehicle losses show few signs of slowing in the grueling fall and winter conditions. Between November 20 and 26, Ukraine's military destroyed 81 tanks, making up approximately 3 Russian tank battalions, according to an update from Ukraine's military communications platform on Monday. Around 5,760 Russian soldiers were taken out of action in the same time frame, as well as 108 armored vehicles, according to Kyiv. On Monday, the General Staff of Ukraine's military said Russia had lost 7 tanks in the previous 24 hours, bringing Kyiv's tally of total Russian tank losses to 5,520 since February 2022, when Moscow launched its full-scale invasion. Last week, Kyiv said Russia lost 30 tanks in a single day, as Moscow refuses to relent around the embattled Donetsk town of Avdiivka. Both sides have run up heavy equipment losses in the 21 months of all-out war, not least among stocks of main battle tanks. Although it's difficult to get a clear picture of the scale of both sides' equipment losses, Western experts largely suggest the Ukrainian military's figures are likely to be close to the mark. Ukraine's Soviet-era fleet of main battle tanks has been supplemented by battalions of Western-made tanks, including Berlin's Leopards, the British Challenger 2s, and the U.S. Army's M1 Abrams. The Kremlin said on Sunday that its forces had taken out a Ukrainian tank in an unspecified part of the eastern Donetsk region, as well as another tank in Ukraine's annexed southern Zaporizhzhia region. Ukraine has lost a total of 13,629 tanks and other armored combat vehicles in the 21 months of war, Russia added. But it didn't detail how many main battle tanks are included in the tally. It hasn't been possible to independently verify Russia's count. The Ukrainian military declined to comment on Russia's figures, when Ukraine reported that Russian tank losses would surpass $4,000 in mid-June. Experts told media that Moscow had been plagued by organizational and planning failures among its tank crews, poor training regimes, and unmotivated troops struggling on after the best were wiped out in the first waves of the war. In recent months, Russian tank losses are thought to have been significant around Avdiivka, which has spent almost a decade on the front lines. Ukrainian commanders reported a new push around Avdiivka from Russian troops last week, although the efforts likely came with weaker mechanized capabilities than in the previous offensive waves that occurred in October, the U.S. think tank, the Institute for the Study of War, said on Friday. The past 6 weeks have likely seen some of the highest Russian casualty rates of the war so far, the British Defense Ministry said on Monday, adding that this is down to Russia's designs on Avdiivka. If Russia continues to increase weapons production and improve technologically with the help of its allies, the war could spread beyond the eastern and southern areas, Lieutenant General Serhiy Nayev, who has responsibility for Ukraine's northern border defense, said, speaking in an interview with ABC News. "We are getting ready for that," he said. "We're building defenses, laying landmines, and training our forces." Despite Ukraine's initial successes in preventing total Russian occupation, the counteroffensive that was launched 5 months ago has yielded minimal gains. This inertia underscores a noticeable shift in the nature of the war. The Lieutenant General bluntly acknowledged that the ongoing war has now essentially become a resource-driven war. Nayev pointed out that Russia secures its resources through alliances with what he referred to as the axis of evil, which includes North Korea and Iran. In contrast, Ukraine relies on voluntary support from its international partners, and that any decrease in Western aid will negatively impact the situation on the front line. It must be understood that the reduction of aid will really hit our defense capabilities. But we will fight with what we have, he added. Nayev pointed out that the focus in this war has shifted from one of purely quantity to one of strategic preparedness. Technology is critical. Where, according to the old Soviet-style technologies, it was necessary to expend 100 shells, now with Western munition technologies, much less is needed. We now measure in numbers of 10 or less. The technology always outweighs the numbers, Nayev said. And I will emphasize once again that this help is very, very important to us, he concluded.
Готов! Вот так отрабатывает земледелие наша машина.
Вспомнил я уже, так что можно идти дальше. Инструктора хорошего всему научили. Механик, он тоже раньше по контракту у меня служил. Ему может вообще...
Армата! Пострел! Ствол чистый!
Yeah.